Welcome back, everyone, to the Fast Life Podcast. Hope you guys had a great weekend and a great week so far. Man, it's been real slow motion for us over here. It's kind of wet and rainy here in Dallas, so it's not a lot going on, not a lot we can plan. Pretty much just work. And I haven't got a lot done, which I'm not pretty proud of. But at any rate, still just the beginning of the week, so I still got 3 more days to go, or 4, depending on when you hear this. Yeah, man, it's just nothing really going on, man. I feel like I should be telling you something about what's going on with us, but there's nothing. It's just another day and another paint job and another this and another that. So without stealing too much of that airtime for me, let me just kick this off and let's talk about our sponsors. I want to thank Texas Performance MC for continuing to support this podcast like they've done since day one. And hope you guys are checking him out. I get reached out a lot, especially after I just made this post on Instagram about putting this TBR exhaust and a couple things on the new Road Glide that we got. And pretty much everything that we've done so far, which is just the bars and the exhaust, I mean, you can get that from Mark down there at Texas Performance down in Austin, Texas. You can hit them up online, order some parts. Maybe if you're in Texas, bring your bike through, get some parts dialed on. You know, like that's pretty much what I did. So, you know, there's no reason why you can't do the same thing. So check out Mark at Texas Performance MC and TexasPerformanceMC.com. The first one will be Instagram, second one will be .com. So you've heard this enough to understand. I also want to thank my boys over at Paint Huffer Metal Flake. Love what they're doing, love what they do for us, and love how their products make our paint work look. So check out PaintHuffer.com if you want to get set up with any of the metal flakes or pearls or even just some hats and swag that they carry. Check them out, man. Check them out and support them. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys follow them because they got a badass Instagram page to check out, you know, with lots of talented people reposting a lot of badass paint jobs that are done by a lot of talented people across the United States. So you really can't go wrong with following that page. And, you know, like I said, maybe you're not a painter, but you dig the brand. They got some cool shirts, man. Check them out. Wave that flag out in the crowd, you know, let people know what you're into, you know what I mean? So check those guys out, PaintHuffer.com and Paint Huffer Metal Flake on Instagram. I also want to thank my dudes up at Horsepower Inc. They're the Horsepower Kings, I guess. I guess I'm not allowed to anoint people. People got mad at me for calling certain people FXR royalty and shit, but they don't have a podcast. So fuck those guys. I call people what I want to call them. Anyway, Horsepower Inc. Check those guys out. HorsepowerInc.net if you want to order some throttle bodies, exhaust systems, air cleaners, or once again, get some swag from them. Check them out. Also on Instagram at Horsepower Inc. And on Facebook, if you're still into that stuff, Facebook, it's Horsepower Inc. Indy on Facebook. They're up there in Indianapolis, man. So I know a lot of you guys are getting up there in that area. You're getting kind of like your riding season's just about done. And I want to say that I just noticed that they offer a winter storage special to kind of keep the bikes tendered and in a cool, calm environment. I guess I don't know how bad it gets up there for you guys, but maybe check them out, man. Hit up Jimmy or Laura up there on Instagram, or just give them a call and see what, you know, maybe they can do something for you, or maybe it's a good time for you to start working on a big motor or a big project with them. So at any rate, give them a call, or at least give them a follow, or hit them up on one of the platforms. You know what I'm saying? So check those guys out for me. Thank you. I also want to thank Hard Drive Parts. That was an awkward pause. I did that on purpose. No, I didn't. But anyway, Hard Drive Parts, man. Check those guys out. They've been, an awesome sponsor for us since for a while now. And if you've heard the Zombie Mike podcast, you've heard us talk about Hard Drive and the company and just the direction it's headed and all that good stuff. So pretty much that's like the best podcast listener to get the best ad for this thing. But anyway, Hard Drive Parts, you can find them on the internet at hdtwin.com. If you want to get set up as a dealer, start pushing some of the products, and that's pretty much where you need to go to get set up for that. Also, if you would like to just see what kind of products they sell, or just, you know, have another cool page to follow on Instagram, check them out at Hard Drive on it. Hard Drive. Fuck. I'm so messing up. Hard Drive. Just do it. Anyway, it's early, man. I'm sorry. I'm on a bad sleeping schedule right now. This new Assassin's Creed Odyssey game came out, and I'm just a fucking kid again, man. Just staying up late, not even thinking about my responsibilities, and so I'm like a little scatterbrained right now. But I am happy that last night, man, I got to sit down with Shorty. If you're in the paint business, then you kind of probably have heard of Shorty. Shorty, here in DFW, he's kind of an OG in the paint game, man. He's kind of been doing stuff here for shit you're gonna hear since the 80s, and he's on that TV show Iron Resurrection with the Martin brothers down there in Dripping Springs, Texas. And like I said, he's just a good all around dude, really positive, minded. Great guy to talk to. I mean, shit, I think we talked for 30 minutes before the podcast and probably 2 hours after it was over. You know what I mean? Like, he's just a good dude to talk to. You know what I mean? So very, very talented as far as, his work ethic and the type of paint work he's done and just everything, man. So I'm really proud to have him on the podcast, and hope you guys check him out at the end of the podcast. You can see all the stuff you can follow him on, and it's all right there for you. So have fun, and sorry for this clanky intro.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast.
Cool, now we're going. So, cool. Shorty, what's up, man?
Oh man, not much. Just here trying to get some work done in this cold weather.
Yeah, dude.
Cold and rainy weather.
Hit us like nothing, didn't it? It was nice and 70 yesterday, and now it's 40s and wet.
Good old Texas, man.
For sure, man.
I heard that Texas right now has every kind of weather you can get. Snow, rain, hot weather, in different parts of Texas, but that's the way it is.
It's far enough away to make a difference.
That's right.
Yeah, man, your shop, man. It's the first time I've been there. It's I'm jealous, man. I like it. It's got a lot of cool shit to look at, man. You got bicycles. Were you into bikes at some point, or?
Well, no. I the reason I have these bikes that I have right now, this dyno that's behind me, my brother-in-law, he gave that to me. It was a hand-me-down. He bought his kids a new bike.
Yeah.
And so that one was a hand-me-down, and I was around 13 years old when he gave me that bike.
Damn.
So I've had it a long time.
It's got the gyroscope. Is it what they call it? Gyroscope neck on there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
No,
and I haven't done anything else to it. Maybe put a set of tires and a couple of hand grips.
Nah, it's cool, man. But this shop, man, it's like the perfect size to stay creative, and it looks like you have it organized in a way it's easy to flow and work from one thing you have to do to the next, whether you're doing body work, painting, or buffing, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, for sure. If you have a big shop, there's just more room to accumulate more crap.
Yeah.
And that's the human nature of it. And this shop is pretty small, but I do have it kind of organized to where I can get stuff done.
Yeah.
I don't have what a lot of guys have, a dirty room or such and such, but I try to keep it pretty clean every day, and these things that I have here are just a reminder of, I grew up very poor. And so like these bikes that you see that are hanging up there, they're just things that I couldn't have when I was little. So now that I'm able to buy them, I buy them and just hang them up.
Yeah.
But it works for me. It's small, but I get the job done, and I'm working on a new building, but it's just talking right now, so we'll see what happens.
You plan on staying here in Dallas, in the DFW area, or what?
Oh yeah, man. This is my stomping grounds right here, so I'm definitely going to stick around the area. I love it around here.
Yeah.
So definitely, if I move from here, it ain't going to be far. It's going to be within a few miles.
Yeah, just somewhere else. Yeah. Well, like I was saying before we started recording, man, it's back in. I grew up in the paint and body business myself, with my dad and grandfather, prepping cars, stripping panels and shit like that. But in 2002, I just got out of high school, and I had took that job. It was with my dad as his prepper, but he was doing all the, panel body replacement, collision repair at that shop around the corner from yours, which was Texas Body Shop.
Body Shop, I think it was called, yeah.
And it's crazy because I used to drive by. Like, I lived in Arlington, so I would come down 30 and hit Hampton, and I would pass your shop every day, and I'd always see flamed out cars out front, and just like for me, I've always had a hustle mentality of like trying to like I want to have the dopest shop, or I want to have the dopest work sitting out front. And every day driving to do this collision work, I had to see all the dope ass cars sitting out front of your shop and how clean, like even when you're sitting in traffic at that light and you can see in there because that door was facing the main road, and it's just clean, like you could eat off the floor and everything, and it carries on here, so.
Yeah, just something that I've always I made myself, every day before you go home, you see stuff on the floor and you see dust, trash, or pieces of sandpaper or rolls of tape that you see just about anywhere you go. I try to give me about an hour, 45 minutes to clean up before I leave. It's just something that I picked up from working I worked at a dealership for a long time, and fortunate to work for Sewell Cadillac. I started there at a very young age. I started there when I was 20. And the owner, Carl Sewell, he was all about cleanliness. Not that I wasn't clean before that, but when you're around that age, you that's when you start to grow and get wiser.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you'd hope. And he impressed me on how he wanted to keep the dealership clean, which meant the body shop, the paint shop, the service shop, everything. He was just all about keeping it clean. He had a crew, and every day we come in the morning, we had a fresh slate. We had a fresh area to work out of, and that was nice. And I think that a lot of it I learned from him. He's a great owner. I loved working for that guy because that was my first big time job per se, and I think in a short period of time I became one of the main guys there, one of the main painters. And for some reason he used to always every morning come in and say good morning to me and shake my hand. He did that for years, and I just always respected that. And that was, I worked there for 13 years. I would say 13 years of the best, some of the best of my life, I would say. So, and were you still working there when you opened this one shop that I was mentioning earlier? So I was. While working there, I always thought, I want to be the body shop manager of this place. Because those guys that are running this body shop, they're worthless. Yeah. They don't know what they're doing. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to be the body shop manager. And towards the end, I would say I really pressed to doing it. And I guess what happened is I got very discouraged at some point. Oh, that's all good. That's my phone. I got very discouraged at some point because the people that work there, which are like the service managers, the top managing people. Yeah. Sometimes they don't take care of the people. Oh, for sure. Like you would like to be taken care of. They treat people like crap. Yeah, yeah. And we had a service writer or service manager at the time, which is the guy that runs everything. Yeah. The service director is what they call him. He runs the service drive. He runs the body shop, the mechanic shop, everything. Yeah. And that guy was like just real shitty, to everybody. And at that point, I realized that it was going to be hard for me to stay in that business because of the people that work in those places that are just bad people. Yeah. Horrible people. Well, they don't have a passion for it. It's just a job for them. Right. Right. So to them, it's like, and plus since they, maybe some of them have started in that position working in the shop. Yeah. But a lot of them don't. They get that job because of, a degree in business or some bullshit like that. And so they come in with not really having a connection or being able to talk to the average guy in the shop and make a connection and make it a happy place to work. You know what I mean? So. And I think you're very right, man. I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head because, at the time I was younger and I just felt like, I break my back for these people. I was there from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever it took. To keep the paint shop caught up. Yeah. And but yet they were just, it was never enough. Yeah. They were always just about. It's almost like if you do that, then you're expected to do it, and it's not like, it's not a, hey man, I appreciate the extra work you're putting in,
it's just like, oh, he does it all the time. So if he's not doing it, we're gonna wonder why.
Yeah, and I think you're right. So at that point, you know, when I saw those kind of things happening, I just said to myself, you know what, this is not a very good environment for me. You know, I'm not that way. I don't think I can work like this for these people. You know, and I can see that that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And that's I think that's how corporate the world is.
That's exactly how it is.
And so at that point, I said, I'm gonna have to be gone from here. By the time I'm 33 years old, I have to be gone.
Yeah. And
I was around 30 at the time. And so I just made a goal. I just put I made a goal for myself, and you know, I bought some land. You know, going back to what we were talking about. And one day I was driving to work, man, and I saw a for sale sign on the piece of property that you mentioned, and I made a U-turn, man. And I went and got the phone number. I called my wife immediately when I got there, because around that time we didn't have any cell phones.
Yeah.
You know, so when I got to work, I called her and I said, hey, I saw this land for sale, and I think I want it, you know, and this and that and the other. So she called. We were fortunate enough to put a bid on it. We got it, and the property is only 50 foot wide by 200 foot long, so it's not a very big property. And but I didn't care, you know, I wanted it because there's a shop beside it that I could envision my shop being like it. You know, I said, I put another one like that, and everything would be great. That's all I need, just a little shop like that. And sure enough, man, I bought the land, I paid it off. About 2 years later, I built me a building, put my booth in. As a matter of fact, the booth was more than the shop was. You know, I paid 50 grand for that one booth, and the building was only like 16 grand, you know, 18 grand at the time. So that's how I got that property and the shop, which I still have today.
That place was it was like pretty much brand new at that time too. It had like that new vibe compared to the other
brand
area.
New.
Yeah, because you know, like I was saying a while ago, I kind of grew up, you know, within a few minutes of that shop, you know, in the neighborhood directly across the street from it. So, but it is nice how that whole area is, I guess they call it gentrification now or some shit, where they're going back in and making it all nice, putting new shit and buying up the properties, which, you know.
And cleaning it up. That's what I call it.
Yeah,
you know, they're going back and cleaning it up. So yeah, I mean, that was my goal, and I met it, and I was there for 18 years at that one building before I decided to move out here, a more secluded area. You know, I was fortunate enough to run into this building from a customer. I had a customer I did some work for. He said, hey, I got a little building out in the woods if you want to care to take a look at it. I came to take a look at it. I said I want it. And that's how I got it.
Nice. So you know, you were doing the paint work, mainly a painter, right, at Sewell, so just pretty much production paint. So when you opened this shop, was it more like just more collision, or did you start opening your mind to doing more of like the hot rods and the more restoration stuff? Yeah,
you know, when I opened the shop, the intention was more collision, because that's where the money's at. You know, you turn money, and that I needed to make money. You know, I left a very good paying job to open up my own shop. So when I opened up my own shop, you know, people think that it's easy here and it's great, and it's not. You know, when you open up your own business, you have to work harder. When I was working at Sewell, you know, I got a paycheck every week. I had to run, you know, I ran a certain amount of hours every week. It's repetitious. But when you open up your own business, you have to go out there and get it. You have to go prove yourself to everybody and stuff like that. And so I wasn't getting that weekly paycheck anymore. I was just trying to take cars in to get paid. So the frame of mind was to get, you know, regular collision cars in there and to pay the bills. Doesn't always work out like you want it to. It never does, hardly, and and this was no exception. So when I got there, more of the people that want to work were the custom stuff, you know, restoration stuff that takes a long time and you don't make any money. But you know, when you're desperate and you need to make a dime here and there, you're gonna take them in. So I took in a couple of big jobs, complete cars, which was kind of like more like restoration. And those jobs don't really pay that great.
Yeah.
So I had to struggle. I struggled until the regular collision jobs started coming in, and I got to know a lot of the writers. What do you call them? The appraisers.
Yeah.
You know, of insurance companies, insurance people.
Yeah.
And until then, business began to flow, and that took about a year. So it was a year of struggling to make money and pay the guys. And you know, don't get me wrong, there were certain days where I maybe I shouldn't have done what I did. And I think that happens to everyone, no matter what you do. But
shit, I still do it now.
Yeah,
I still do it.
I hear you, man. So, but you know, it took me about a year to get on my feet, and after that, it was great, man. You know, I was again fortunate enough to not sue a Cadillac, but sue a Lexus. I had a good friend that worked at in the service area, and I got a call one day, and he said, "Hey, you know, you worked here for many years. You know, we know your work and this and that and the other." He said, "Why don't you come talk to me? I got a business proposition for you." I went up there. He said, "I want you to do all of our pre-owned cars, all of our in-house damage, and our freight damage." Like, man, you know, so
that's a lot, yeah.
So that right there got the ball rolling for me, like full speed ahead.
Yeah.
You know, so we, for years, you know, we did, I don't know, around 45 to 50 something cars every month for Sewell Lexus.
Damn.
And that gave me a lot of freedom.
Out of your shop?
Out of my shop.
Damn,
yeah.
that shop's not even that big to run
Yeah,
that.
that shop is only 3,200 square feet. But, you know, I had a lot of experience, you know, how to utilize the space and be efficient, you know, from working at Sewell. So we used the space to the maximum, and you know, at that point, I had to hire another couple of helpers. So I had a body man, I had a painter, and I had 2 helpers. So there was 5 of us total at all times, and that little bitty shop right there, you know, turned out over 45 cars a month.
Damn.
Mainly for Sewell, and then, you know, I would say 20% were about collision repair jobs. But after that, you know, my passion has always been in the custom world. So I always felt like I was getting left behind, because although I wanted to do it so bad, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, I had a family, I had a couple kids, and I had to stay where the money was.
Yeah.
But after a few years, you know, paid off my building and stuff like that, I think I got a little bit more freedom and began to take cars that were more like in the custom world, mainly lowriders.
Yeah.
Started doing a lot of lowriders at the time, you know, candy paint jobs and stuff like that. So I got into the custom stuff, and I kept it really low key, because, you know, I didn't want people to think that I was doing that all the time, because like I said, you know, those things take a lot of time and they don't pay as great.
Well, you know, it's kind of like with JB Customs, you know, when he started putting it out there, doing all the lowriders, it's like his shop was full of it, and he had more people stopping in for the custom shit than the stuff that actually paid, which is a collision. And I just remember seeing the rows and rows of cars that, you know, the quality went down big time. I mean, I love JB, you know, Joe's a great friend, but when I used to do a lot of airbrushing and artwork for him back in the day, you're sitting there airbrushing and he's not at the shop, and other people come in looking for him all the time, and I'm like, damn, I don't want this to be me. Right. You know, I always got my money though, so I'm good, but you know. Yeah,
you have to, you know yourself, you have to be careful. Once you do those kind of things, you have a commitment, and the commitment is to people that want you to do their work, and the people that you're doing work for at the time. So my main concern is to keep the people happy all the time. If I can't take the job in, I'm not going to take it in, because I wouldn't be doing them any justice. So you have to, you know, a lot of people don't do that.
I think a lot of people don't do that. You're correct, but I do that. I tell people, no, I'm sorry, I can't. And I think that a lot of customers they have a hard time taking that. You know, they have their money. Hey man, I want you to do the car. I want you to do it. I'm like, man, I want to do it, but it's 3 months, it's 6 months before I can touch it.
Exactly.
I don't want it in my shop until it's time.
Exactly.
You know. And a lot of people have that impulsive, like, I want it now, like it's like everything that we do is like on a shelf and they're just buying it.
Exactly.
You know, and when they get told no, like, I'm sorry, I can't do it for you right now.
Yeah. And you know, I think that a lot of those people, like, I have a lot of good customers that I've had for years, and that's how they learn to know me. You know, they don't want another customer that's already in here to sacrifice because of somebody else that is coming in, and they know that that's the way I am. So I always tell them, you know, I'll have a space for you, you know, and whether it's weeks, months, or whatever it is, if you like to wait, you know, I'll put you down. And I think that they respect that more than anything. You know, once they get to know you and know that you want to give them the best that you can.
Yeah.
Once they know that, then I don't think they have a problem. But if they think that you just don't want to take their work in, they don't understand it.
Yeah.
But for me, that's the reason why.
See, I've heard of, you know, I worked for Gary at Other Side Customs. He used to paint for Sewell. I want to say he worked at Sewell Lexus back in the 90s or something like that.
He might have.
He was a painter there. But, you know, when I worked for him, like, I'm just now breaking some of the habits I learned from working with him. And it works for him, but for me, it doesn't work. But he would take, if you walked in the shop, he'd take it. He didn't care. Like, so next thing you know, he's got a fucking wall full of work. He was more like just trying to get all the work in and try to get it figured out or trying to figure out how to get it out. And it caused so much problems, you know, with customers and shops. And then, like, you know, Rick Fairless, he'll come in with his chopper he wants us to do. So everything on the floor gets stopped and we work on this for 3 weeks. And it was just it was not a good way of doing business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Your
workflow, your money flow, your customer flow, everything suffers.
Yeah.
When you clutter up the shop and don't finish a project. You put somebody else in front, all that. Everybody suffers when you do that.
Yeah. You're
better off finishing what you have and then taking another one in. Every time you put one out, you take one in.
Yeah.
You put one out, you take one in. And that's how I've been mainly geared to do. So I've been sticking with it for years, and it's worked great for me.
So when you got into the lowrider stuff, was that more your first step into the custom world? Was that, or was it some of the hot rods and shit as well? Or?
Well, no, you know, my first steps into the hot rod world was more of a hot rods. You know, more of the flames and stuff like that. But you know, everybody wanted candies back in the day.
Yeah.
You know, not that they don't want them today, but you know, that was big. That was a big thing, man, and not everybody could paint a candy car.
Yeah, for sure. Or they'll put like. They'll use like House of Color candy and then put like Omni fucking hardener in it and shitty $100 clear on it, and then you got a silver reddish car.
Or they'll mix it together with other stuff.
And then wet sand it off.
And wet sand it off, and then the car would last about a year.
Yeah, tops.
You know, then it'd look So, you know, for me, I always stuck with the same brand all the time, and I never had any problems. What I was known for in those days was a complete candy, you know, without any patterns or nothing. Just a clean, solid, one color candy, which, you know, it was very hard to spray.
Yeah.
And there were no base candies at the time, and only urethanes. So you could not get a run on it, because if you did, you had to start all over from scratch. So I was known for doing complete candies, and the candies would look just nice and uniform, no tiger striping, no modeling, no nothing, because that was what was hard to do. That's a lot of people don't realize that, but that's how a lot of the pattern deal got started. Is that a lot of guys, since they couldn't do a nice clean candy on the whole car, they started doing a lot of other stuff in between it. You know, that way they wouldn't have to deal with all those big panels that you had to get right.
Yeah, I mean, also if you candied a whole car and cleared it, which I'm sure a lot of this was back before base coat, clear coat, but you know, you can come back with some black fades on top of it and you know, fade over that little run right there. Yeah. I mean, after you blocked it smooth, of course, but yeah. But that's one thing I could do really good. So I had a lot of people just wanting those you know, complete candy jobs at the time. But I'm not very good at patterns. You know that I don't have a very like a badass creative mind like
for you.
Yeah.
You know, you have a very creative mind, and you can come up with like new stuff. Me, I have to think about it. I have to think about it. What am I going to do next? You know, like pinstripers. That's one thing I like about those guys. You know, that they can think of a design on the go. You know, they go like, and they just do line after line, and everything looks right. I try to do a pinstripe, and I can stripe, but I just don't have any imagination.
Yeah.
You know, to do the design.
See, I'm that way as well. Like whenever I stripe or I try to pull off like a nice pinstripe design, I spend more time with a pen and paper trying to come up with the design, and then all my friends, they come out, they just whip out a design, and they're just pretty much. I think that I figured out they just run with it. Whatever they do, it's like, oh, well, that's there now. What's the next one? And then, I think after you do hundreds and hundreds of designs, you get to a flow to where the lines that flow nicely, and you start to understand each individual stroke in a way that my mind doesn't comprehend it.
And that's what they tell me.
Yeah.
I have a lot of good, excellent pinstripers, pros, and that's what they say. You just need a lot of practice. We do this every day. They say we were like you when we first started. We didn't know what other, if this was going to look good, so we just did it. And then through time, you learn what flows. Yeah. And then you just come up with a badass design. Yeah. Which I have a hard time coming up with, but
there's so many facets of being a custom painter. You know what I mean? And I was thinking about it. I think yesterday I was driving. I was like, man, like, because I'm hard on myself because I can do like everything, but I'm not like the best at everything. If that makes sense.
Well, I mean, there's always someone better.
Well, yeah,
everything.
For sure. But it's like I look at some of the guys, like some of the stripers, like Loki and some other people around town. And I'm like, they're 100% the best at what they do. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then something like, say, I have a friend, Ryan Townsend, he's on here sometimes, amazing airbrush guy. He's one of the best in the country airbrush guys. And he can do graphics, but it's not his strong suit, so he tries to stay away from it. Right. And it's just like, it's funny because like, I'm used to, when I grew up doing paint, I grew up with not knowing anybody, like just in the hole in the wall of my own world.
Yeah,
so,
that was kind of me.
Yeah.
That was kind of myself. I didn't really know a whole lot of people. Whatever I did was on my own.
Yeah. So I've never had the luxury of like knowing a pinstriper to come in and bang something out for me or outline some graphics. So it's all kind of like a forced to learn how to do it to make it happen. And which I'm super thankful for, but I'm still hard on myself because when you practice anything for a long amount of time, you want to be the best at it. Yeah. Or considered as. Yeah.
I mean, definitely. Whatever it is you do, you definitely want it to come out as good as it can. Yeah. I sometimes I'm my worst enemy because I'll paint whatever. I'll have it looking pretty good, and then I'll get a little piece of lint on it, and although I can leave it in there and color sand it off, I'll try to dig it out. And during the process, I screw it up because I dug into the clear. Yeah. And like, oh, man, I should have left it on there because you can very easily just, sand it out of it. I do the same. But I didn't. I screwed it up, so now I got to resand it and put some more base on it. Do it all over again.
So most of the 2000s was this shop. It was doing all the work for Sewell. Started kind of dabbling in the custom shit. When did like kind of some of the bike stuff and all the work that you started doing with Joe come along, or was that relationship?
Well, like in 1989, because I'm considerably older than you are.
89.
In 89.
Okay.
I started at Sewell in 85.
Oh, so I was born in 82. So.
Okay, so I was 20 years old when I started there in 85. I started July 1st of 1985. And I can't tell you what date I quit, but I know it was 13 years later. So I was building a truck, a 68 GMC. I started it in 89. And back in those days, there were no parts like there are today. You couldn't go and order a lowering kit. You couldn't buy airbags. There were no drop spindles. Basically everything that you did back in those days, you had to be creative and do yourself. And so I was building a 68 GMC, which I have pictures of it. And it turned out killer, man. Badass. It was on the ground. It was lowered and everything. But, murals were big at the time. I wanted a mural on it. And it was something stupid, but I didn't think it was stupid at the time. I thought it was great. And I wanted the downtown Dallas, the skyline, and I wanted the Predator. That's when the Predator movie came out, and I wanted the Predator, you know, like a giant
Yeah.
Predator, stepping over the buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I wanted a robotic eagle flying over it.
What was a robotic eagle a reference to? Just
I don't know.
just
Something that came out to my mind, right? So I wanted a robotic eagle, like up in the sky, like he had come down and took my truck, like it had it in its claws, right? And it was flying away with it, and the Predator was coming to take it back.
Yeah.
You know, and he was just stepping all over downtown, you know, the buildings and stuff. So I met a friend that, you know, we're still friends today, that knew Joe.
Uh-huh.
And I was telling him about it one day, you know. I said, man, I want a mural on my truck, but I don't know anybody, you know. He said, I know somebody can do it for you. I said, oh, yeah. He said, oh, yeah. I said, oh, yeah, who's that? He said, my friend Joe. He'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I met Joe. So I got his number. I called him up, and I said, hey, Joe, man, Mark gave me your number. He said that you might do me a mural.
Mm-hmm.
He said, yeah, man, what do you want on it? And what is it on? So I told him, I said, the hood's ready. I got it all painted and cleared.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I got it all sanded down, ready for you to do it. And I said, that's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
He said, all right. Yeah.
What year? What time frame was this?
So this was so I started the truck in '89 and I finished it in '91.
Okay.
It took me about 2 years.
Yeah.
To finish it up. This is around 1991, and
mini trucking was getting pretty big right around that time, right? Like just trucks in general, like
mini trucking.
Yeah.
That's what was huge
Yeah.
at the time, mini trucking.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much the big body trucks, but the mini trucking movement was like full blown. That's where everybody had, you know, the wheels that came out of the wheel wells and the little campers. And
the campers. I remember those.
Yeah, and it was crazy the mini trucking world. But so I told him what I wanted. I took the hood to his house, and we met. That's when we actually met. He gave me an address to his house and stuff, and that was back when we actually physically had to, you know, write it on the paper and had to go look for it.
Use a map scope.
Use a map scope. You know, we didn't have the Google Maps and all that stuff like we do these days. But anyway, I found him, and he said, yeah. So he did me a mural, which I can show you, you know, later, and let's just see how it looked. And that's how we met. So that was around 91, 92, somewhere in there. And then just ever since. Mm-hmm. You know, he was... you know, building bikes at the time, and he had cars too and stuff. But you know, he mainly did like bikes, and he tinkered very little with cars. You know, I think he had a Trans Am that he tubbed out and kind of made it into a drag car. But other than that, you know, didn't really mess with cars much like he did with bikes. Yeah. So that's how we met.
Were you doing any of the work, like any of the like paint work or body work on any of the stuff that he was doing back?
No, I was not doing anything until, like, oh man, I'm gonna say it was, like around the 2000s. You know, that's when he kind of like, you know, they got a shop. They actually had a shop because he used to do the stuff at his home, and that, you know, like in his garage. So once they got a shop, and I can't remember around the year they got a shop right here, not too far down the road, but once they got a shop, then that's when we started kind of like hanging out more, and then doing stuff for each other, you know. Yeah. But
because he didn't have a paint shop there at that, you know, the building that was on 67 there. It was just a metalworking.
Yeah. So he had bought a house in a villa. And had a garage, a shop back in the back. He had a little homemade booth back there where he did all the paint work.
That's cool.
On his bikes.
Yeah, that was, I don't know, man. That whole area was cool. But so what was the? I guess, you know, you've been doing that for a while, and then you moved out here. So out here in this new shop, has it just kind of been just custom only? I mean, I don't see any like Hyundais up in here.
No, here in the new shop. I do mainly restorations, and I don't do very many because, like I said, I don't want to clutter up any.
I mean, you already got enough cars in here that if they were all taken apart, it'd be a and like right now, you know, I can say that I kind of made it because most of the cars you see in here are mine. That's cool.
Yeah. Mostly everything in here is mine except the one that you see right there, and that's it. That's a customer's. But everything else are my projects, and you know, I don't have enough problems. I start one and then I start another one, because you just kind of like, oh man, I want to do that, and then you know. So that's one problem I have. I get told all the time by my wife that you have too many projects and don't finish it, and that is one of my problems. So I need to get straight on that. But mainly restorations and then custom work I do here. You know, I haven't spent a whole lot of time at this shop because, you know, I help Joe. We do a show, and so that takes a lot of my time, and so I'm hardly ever here. So just on weekends, it's when I get to come up here. So, you know, I don't get to do a whole lot of work.
Yeah. Shit. So that show, like, you know, it's on the third season, or how many seasons?
Yeah, the Iron Resurrection show is it's on its third season. Right
How did
now,
all that stuff get kicked off? Like, what was the whole like?
So you know, we've been doing the show for 3 years, but prior to that, it was 5 years in the making. You know, the way it came about is Joe. Again, he came to me and because, you know, we hung out a lot and stuff, and so one day he said, "Hey, Shorty," said, "How do you feel about doing a show, a car show? You know, like actually building cars?" And I said, "Well, shit, that'd be badass." And he said, "Man, well, my brother's working on it, you know, and he knows, he's still in contact with the producer of the Biker Build-Offs. You know, he still knows the guy, and the guy's tied in with with still the, you know, doing that kind of stuff, the network and stuff." He said, so you know, he asked me, he said, "I want to ask you if you want to do it, and if you're in, you know, we'll proceed, you know, 100%, like give it a shot." And I said, "Yeah, man, I'm in." Like, yeah, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
It ain't gonna happen. And so 5 years later, man, every once in a while he'd mention it to me between there and here, and I said, "Yeah, man, I'm in. I'm in. Yeah, I'm still in, man. Do it. Let's do it." Around 5 years later, he said, "You remember that show I was telling you, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, we're gonna do a little trailer to send it out, and this and that and the other." Okay, well, we did a little trailer, and they sent it out, and I guess they looked at it and stuff, and decided that it would be a cool show. So, I mean, that took months. And one day he came to me, he said, "I think we're going to do it, man." So that's when it kind of started to become reality. You know, like, oh, man, really? For real, you know? That's when I kind of started to believe it. And sure enough, man, you know, a few months after that, he said, we're going to start. We got a date, and we're going to start doing the show, man. And it's, you know, his brother came up with the name, actually, Iron Resurrection. And he said, "I just want to make sure you're in, because, you know," he told me, so without you, you know, I can't do it.
Yeah, because he relocated pretty much down there. What's it, Johnson City down there? Or
around Dripping Springs.
Dripping Springs,
yeah,
okay.
And his reasoning for that is that he, you know, he liked to go boating a lot.
Oh, so Lake Travis right there.
Yeah, Lake Travis.
I remember the last time that me and him spoke. The last time we sat down together and spoke was at the shop in Duncanville, the big shop.
Yeah.
And he was telling me he had just painted one of those long ass boats, and he was telling me how much money was in all that shit, and I was like, dude, I'm not even interested in any of that shit. So that was the last time. I think I saw him at a couple bike events, and that's about it.
Yeah, those were a pain in the ass, those big boats.
Yeah, fuck,
I would never do that again. But
he was saying they were getting like 40 or 50 grand to paint those things, though.
Yeah, but you see how big they are.
I wouldn't do none of it. They're
big. They're huge.
Yeah.
So I don't think that even that kind of money interests me, but he liked boats, man. And the lakes around here were drying up. You know, we had that drought where there wasn't any water. In the lakes. You remember that? They were drying up for some reason. And then he said, "Man, if I ever sell my house, I'm gonna move to Austin, you know, over there." And I said, "Cool, man." And sure enough, he had a buyer for his house. He had a realtor look for him a house over there, and it just came together. But I told him, "Good luck, man, because I ain't moving."
I wouldn't mind moving down there, but the price of everything keeps going up, and It's just
Yeah.
it's the highway structure is so primitive compared to how big the Austin city is growing.
I go down there to visit and to kind of maybe ride bikes around. Even in the hill country is dangerous because there's so many deer.
Yeah, dude, especially
and
over there
stuff
where
like that.
y'all are at.
Yeah, you can't. If you ride a motorcycle down there, whatever, you have to be on your toes every single minute because you can't. It's nice and all, but I don't think I would contemplate living down there somewhere because if you go out in the skirts, which is where the good life is, everything's 10, 15, 20 miles away from everything.
Yeah.
And then if you move in the city, close to the city, it's like saturated with people and cars, and there's
no in between. Basically.
I mean, if you think traffic around Dallas is bad, wait till you go to Austin.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That's California, man.
Yeah.
So what the whole premise of the show, like, where was that kind of something that Jason, is that his name?
Yeah, Jason is Joe's brother.
So was he the one that was kind of coming up with the premise and geared it more towards the hot rods instead of motorcycles, or? Yeah,
because the motorcycle deal was basically dead.
Yeah.
And he wanted to build cars, and obviously he asked Joe about it because we were the ones that were going to do the cars. And that's one reason I came in because I'm the one that did cars, and so we come in, and that's why they geared it more towards cars, and the first season was totally different than the second and third season. The first season was basically him buying cars, we fixing them up, and then turning them in for money.
Yeah.
Then the second season we basically took in customer cars and actually built them for customers.
Yeah.
And so it became kind of a more of a real,
just a real thing,
hot rod shop.
Well, that's what I always think is kind of got to be kind of difficult to deal with when you have like a successful TV show that you think. So, like, say, I guess Gas Monkey is technically successful in that, right? And then you have, if you have another car show or customize, and then you get all these producers that don't know a whole lot about the industry or the business, and they just want you to go that direction. Hey, let's just piggyback off what they're doing the same way they're doing it. Because it seemed like for a while you had, Richard doing that shit where he was hustling cars like that. But then you had all these shows of people that were just bidding and trying to get things cheap and like walking into barns. What was it? American Pickers and all this. It was like people that don't give a shit about cars. They just like that chase and hustle of that. So you got an audience for that. And then you have the rest of us that are like just interested in the builds. And you know what I mean? So
you have a variety of audiences, and I guess that's the cool thing about TV. I think that for us, I think we were fortunate that like I said, we started off with one idea, and then it kind of changed because finding cars and kind of putting lipstick on them, so to speak, and then turning them for money. It's good, which is what a lot of people, some of these shows do. You have a lot of shows like that, and it was good. But then you have, at some point, how much of that are you going to do? Everybody was going to do it.
I mean, how are you going to like keep the quality to match the name of who you are? You're selling a car to somebody, so they're buying a car that was on TV. That's when you get a lot of those people that.
Yeah, well, the good thing is that if you buy a car and you bring it in, you put lipstick on it, so to speak.
Yeah.
Then the people buy it as is.
Yeah.
You built the car on a TV show, and then you did basically what you were allowed in time to do it. You basically took the time that the network gives you and did everything that you could possibly do to it, and without putting a whole lot of money into it, because if you're going to turn the car, you're not going to make any profit. So we basically took the cars that he bought and basically made sure that we repaired the body, cut out the rust, repaired the rust, whatever. Did a little bit of motor work if it needed it.
Yeah.
Did a little bit of interior work if it needed it, but basically the most that we've done was the body work and paint.
Yeah.
So that's what sold the car. The wheels, the body, and the paint.
Visual shit.
The visual stuff. The first when you first look at something, what do they call it?
Curb appeal or something like that.
My brain is you know, when you first look at an object,
Yeah.
your first
Perception.
no.
I have to break out the SAT words.
Yeah, when you first look at something you like, it's all about the very first, the moment you look at it is when you know whether you're gonna like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, whatever that is, I'll think about it later. But
Yeah.
we try to make the cars look good,
Yeah.
and which they did. And so basically, when it's like when you go to a car lot and they have these papers hanging on as is, no warranty.
Yeah.
So you're basically buying a car, doing some stuff to it, and then putting it up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
When people come look at it, they ask you, well, did you do this? Well, no. Did you do this? Well, no. Did you do this? Yes. This. Look, all we did was clean up the motor.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe put some door panels on it, but we repaired the rust, all this stuff right. So you disclose everything.
Yeah.
And then it's up to them to buy it.
Yeah.
If they want it bad enough, they'll buy it. If they don't, then they won't. But it's basically up to them. And that was the first season. It's basically what Gas Monkey did. They got a car.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of stuff to it. And then, but the second year is we started something different.
Mm-hmm.
Something more complicated, something more catchy.
Yeah.
It's like, what, we're gonna do customers, cars for customers. Actual customers that come in and they want a car built.
Yeah.
And that's what we based it on after that. So customers came in and they said, we actually have a pretty good fan base.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had no shortage of customers asking, I want this car built, can you do it?
Yeah.
So Joe basically took and he picked out, which customers that he wanted to do these cars for, these builds.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it and everything else, and we agreed and we did it. And that's how it changed from the first year to the last two.
You think that direction's much more? Is it something like you're more proud of that way, other than?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I am more proud of it because I want to do that, but I'm not proud of it because we don't get the time
Mm-hmm.
that it takes to actually do a car like it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
With these projects being so lengthy because of a frame.
Yeah.
We put in frames, like a complete roaster shop chassis, Art Morrison chassis.
Mm-hmm.
They're basically a complete build.
Mm-hmm.
How long does a complete build take? Body and chassis and interior, motor and all that.
Yeah.
The least amount of time is a year.
Yeah.
And you see these badass shops, shops that have a lot of recognition and stuff that do builds like that. That one build takes a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I struggle. That's where I struggle to do these cars because, most of the cars that we have been doing, they get a chassis, they get an LS,
Mm-hmm.
they get very many different types of LSs, but new drivetrain,
Yeah.
basically the whole thing. And so, the amount of time that should take is not what we're given.
Yeah.
And that's what I struggle with because we just can't do it.
Yeah, and it seems like it would be next to impossible to do it the other way. To have the kind of time you really need, or unless you can find a way to maybe double or triple the amount of time they're giving you as is, or make the show where it's like an ongoing project. It's not like every show is a finished product. It's like more of just a show or a series about you guys as individuals in the shop, and the projects are kind of like also part of the show. You know what I mean? Because you're right, man. There is something that goes into that, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like maybe there's also that other side of like our industry, which even though I'm more bikes and y'all are more cars, it's like it's still a lot of similarities, man.
There are a lot of little similar.
Just the day-to-day grinds. You know what I mean?
Day-to-day grind, man, and it's basically the same, but on a different vehicle.
Yeah.
And so we want to give the customer the best product we can
Yeah.
basically give them, that you can give them, for what they're paying. And so we have a vehicle that should take this amount of time, but we have to do it in this amount of time.
Yeah.
And so we just we got to the point where we would do basically the most important steps of that build,
Yeah.
and then finish it later, rather than run through the build and not do it how we want it to.
Yeah.
Versus leave some of the stuff undone.
So maybe do all the visual things,
Exactly.
take care of those, and then come back and handle all the
Exactly.
nook and cranny.
Yeah, and then button it up the way it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a process that worked out a little better for us, and felt a little bit better about it. That way we wouldn't have to run through the whole build as it was. So I think for the most part, everything turned out good. I think it was an experience for, like, not only for us but for the customer.
Mm-hmm.
The customer gets to come
definitely.
in, and they get to see the product, and then the customers. I was going to say that they can come in any time, but not really, because it's supposed to be kind of a surprise,
Unveiling kind of thing.
an unveiling kind of thing. So, although they do get updates and stuff like that, obviously, I think it was exciting for the most of, for the most part, we had really good customers.
Yeah.
That were just willing to work with us, like to the max. They understood our situation, and they wanted to be involved, and they wanted to be as helpful as they could, as they possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
Because they understood what the crunch time we were in, and stuff like that. So most of our customers were great, and just their understanding as to how we had to do things was it made a lot of difference. And that's how we were able to get by.
Yeah.
Actually, just the customers knowing that that's what we were doing, and we basically have to present a car, and the car may have ran and all that stuff and this and that and the other, but like I said, we left the most intricate stuff for later.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the only way you can get a good build.
So how has it been, like, since you've been on that show, like, just for you? I mean, as far as, like, that's a type of popularity and whatnot that's kind of, it's way different. I think it's becoming a thing of the past, though, to be honest with you. I think nowadays with social media getting so much stronger and people, finding their fame on that, being on TV is becoming something that's, like, different. It's a way different, in my opinion. Which I haven't been on, so I don't really I don't know, but just the people I know that, from what I've heard, it just seems like a completely different type of fame, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot different. For me, I can honestly tell you that this is just something extra that happened to me in my lifetime.
Yeah.
It's not something that I had to do. It's not something that I was forced to. It's something that came up on me, an opportunity. That's it, and I was able to do it.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, it's TV and all that, but a lot of people aren't able to do it.
Yeah.
They might have all the talent in the world and stuff like that, because I'm no actor.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
I'm not an actor, but I can tell you that you do have to be sort of at the right place at the right time, and you have to work hard at it.
Mm-hmm.
My background is one that up until I was probably 7 or 8 years old, I didn't have a new pair of pants or new pair of shoes, and knew anything. Everything was a hand-me-down.
Yeah.
Everything was secondhand, and but we had a lot of faith. My mom was always reading to us and everything, and tell us how important our faith was.
Mm-hmm.
And although we didn't have anything, it may seem kind of weird, but I left my country when I was 4 years old, and I'm from way down in a deep of Mexico, central Mexico. And deep in the mountains. If you were to see this place, you would be like, how in the hell did you get to the U.S.? But, we slept on the dirt floors. We lived in adobe houses. We were as poor as you can, as poor as you can actually get. But my mom and dad, they made a decision to leave, and we came to a border town here in Texas, and from there, we struggled a lot, and it was mainly, there were 7 of us in a family. So up until we came across when we came across the border, we were never illegal, by the way. My dad was fortunate to he worked for several good people, a lot of good people along the way that we met.
Yeah.
My dad worked for this white man. His name was Bo, and he helped us to get our papers. He helped my dad. This guy gave us food. This guy did a lot for us, and he was from the real Texas. And so I think our faith paid off, and we had a lot of good people along the way to help us and get us to where we're at today. But when we came to the U.S., my dad actually came in a '66 Plymouth station wagon. I remember it like it was yesterday, and I was around 6, 7 years old at the time, and it was light blue in color, and I remember the wheels and everything. Although I didn't know I was going to be into cars, I remember it. I just remember looking at them and just like say, wow, man,
Yeah.
And so we came to Texas, and I remember sitting at the very back of the station wagon, where we didn't have a whole lot of stuff, but I was back there along with whatever we did have, and the rest of my sisters and stuff were sitting on the front. I remember looking from side to side on the highway and seeing green, like green grass and trees and stuff like that. And I asked my mom if we were in heaven. Yeah. That's how impressed I was, because in Mexico, on the side of the highways and stuff like that, it wasn't a whole lot of greenery or anything like that, just dirt and stuff like that. So, but we came to Dallas, and ever since then, I can say that after all of that, we made it. My sisters, I have 5 sisters and 1 brother, and they all work hard. We all work for what we have, very hard. And so when something like this, going back to your question, when something like this or any other things that come to me, it's I don't take anything for granted. Let's just say I don't take anything for granted. I know how hard things are to get, and I know that life isn't easy. Yeah. And I also know that sometimes I feel guilty because I have a lot of stuff, and I say, well, this is probably wrong, to have all the stuff that I don't need. There's a lot of people in this world that don't have much, and they could use. I could be more useful to that. So I've questioned that a lot before, and so it's just guilt, from having stuff, spending money on stuff that you don't need, when there's so many people that still need it, that are here, even here in the U.S., that are hungry and stuff like that. So I do what I can in my part to help out as much as I can. I love helping especially the charities. Well,
it seems like you have a work ethic, and you capitalize on opportunities, right? So, 2 things that really doesn't require that much skill. Working your ass off, and when things come arise, just be ready to do them, and do them at the best of your ability. So, I get it. I mean, I just seeing all that, I'm kind of in a weird spot myself. Just, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't grow up poor by any means, like very privileged. I grew up super middle, I guess, or lower middle, I guess you'd say. Yeah. But I mean, I had a decent life, man. You know what I mean? I didn't get a new car when I turned 16, but yeah.
And I considering what I told you and stuff like that, I consider us having a great life. Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, even though we had what we didn't have what we had, or what anybody else would have had or whatever, we still managed to be where we're at. So that means that, you know, whatever happened, we didn't die of hunger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we made it. We persevered, and just by working hard, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like every time I do something, it's like I do it with everything I got,
Mm-hmm.
and not just half-ass it. You know, just I try to do. If you want me to do a job for you,
Yeah.
and I tell you that I'm going to do the job, then I try to do the job as best as I can,
Mm-hmm.
as best of my ability, and give you what you expect.
Yeah.
And, you know, just work hard and be honest. That's really all it takes.
Yeah, and then also, I mean, as you grow as your business and your, you know what I mean, the people that work for you, you want them to uphold the same, because it's your name at all times. So, you know, I don't know if you are, but I know I can be an asshole sometimes with like who I work with, just because, you know, I want whoever's getting something from me to be the best. And, you know, say for instance, if I'm paying you to do this job, then I want it to be your best as well.
Sure.
You know,
yeah, because it's your name.
And a lot of people these days like just don't have the it's a job. It's you know,
They don't have the passion, like you said earlier.
yeah,
It's not a passion for what you do. It's just a paycheck.
yeah,
And if it's that, then you don't need to be in there.
yeah, for sure.
You know, but having said that, you know, most people in this world don't get up in the morning because of the love they have for their job.
Yeah,
They get up because they have to.
yeah,
And, you know, I'm in a unique situation. You know, I get up because I love it, and I come to this place because I love it.
Well, I think that what has the mental change needs to be, you got to have a passion for what you do, period. So, you know, we don't always get to, like, same thing with paint jobs. Like, I don't get to do exactly what I want to do on each one, but if I don't do the best that I can at every different thing that's like brought to my attention or brought to my table, then those opportunities are going to go away. So by being a hard worker and capitalizing off the basics, you know, like I used to tell my brother, and I know I was, man, like when I worked for shops, you know, I just wanted to be there every day because, and I didn't think it was going to be my career, but when I saw someone else better than me at something, I wanted to be as good as they were. So I felt like the only way I was going to be that good is to be around it a lot. So I used to come in the shops on my days off and just hang out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And I think you know, like I said, you're right again. You know, since we're talking about like opportunities and kind of where I am today, it's you get somewhere, you get where you want to get by working hard and having a passion for what you love.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I do have. I have passion for what I do. I love what I do, and I try to do my very best at it.
Yeah.
And I think that when you're like that, no matter what you do, the doors open up for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'll give you an example. So when Jose, it's Joe as I call him, Jose, he asked me. I think that he asked me because he knew that I wasn't gonna let him down.
Yeah.
Regardless, you know, he knew my work ethic. He knew my passion for what I did, and he knew my dedication. So, you know, if he hadn't seen that, I don't think he would have ever said, "Do you want to do this with me?" You know, since they were the ones with the opportunity. You know, I don't think that he would have ever. He would have said, I mean, you know, he's all right, but you know, he doesn't. It's not what I need.
Yeah.
I need something. You know what I mean? So your passion, your dedication, and your love for everything that you do is what gets you places.
Yeah.
That's when the doors open up, because people see that.
Yeah.
And so my hard work and my passion for what I do, it got me on the show. You know.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been the way I am, he would have never asked me that. He would have never asked me to come and be with him on something that important. Yeah. You know, so I take pride in that. I feel like every customer that I've ever had, I've fulfilled their expectations. You know.
Yeah, I try to explain that to, you know, people too, man. I was like, you know, what I do is something that was a series of open doors that came because I worked hard. You know what I mean? And so it's like, you know, I've had people want to come and apprentice at my shop, and I've thought about it. I've had someone come in before. It never works out. I wish that concept worked like it did back in the day. But, you know, the one thing I always notice is that people don't want to do the shit that sucks. And I had to do that shit for years. And it was because I was good at doing that stuff.
Sure.
That I was able to advance to the next harder thing. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
then I always looked at it like, you know, like when I first got into this business, I sanded, right? So sanding is the most mindless thing in the world. I mean, wet sanding for like clear down or some shit, you know, maybe not blocking, but it's simple. It tells you when it's done. You know what I mean? So when you dry it off and there's still shiny spots, your job isn't done.
Yeah.
So I'd always have a hard time dealing with people like, why should I have to go back over this? You're an adult, you know, and you're working on something that lets you know when it's done. It might not be a red light that goes off, but it's kind of pretty much the same thing.
They don't have passion for what they're doing.
Because they
already don't like it.
Yeah. So I took it a different approach. Like I would start blocking it down and I would get like jazzed over seeing a complete uniform sanded panel. So I'll be like, fuck man, this looks beautiful. And I'd always tell people the same thing when it, you know, cause I went through phases too, from wet sanding to, you know, I wet sanded for years, you know, especially working at Other Side Customs. And then I buffed for years. So before I was ever an airbrush artist or a custom painter, I was an accomplished prepper and, you know, refinish buffer.
That's how I started.
You know,
I mean, you know, my brother-in-law, his name was Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
He was my oldest sister's husband.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a car nut.
Yeah.
He was a car dude, man. He didn't have a whole lot of money, but whatever cars he did have, I mean, he kept them clean, and he got, even if it was just steel wheels, you know, he'd get a rattle can and paint those suckers real nice, and always had them nice and neat. I mean, that's the guy that I give credit to for getting me in this business.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was 9 years old, and he was always tinkering with his car, cleaning it up. It always had a towel in his hand, and the hose or whatever, the interior, you know, under the hood, checking the oil, whatever it was. And so I was right. He was like, he treated me like his little brother.
Yeah.
Basically, he took me under his wing like his little brother, and I remember his transmissions going bad because he was hard on cars.
Yeah.
You know, he'd always downshift them and treated them like a hot rod.
Yeah.
They weren't a hot rod. All he had was duals and cherry bombs.
Yeah.
You know, he had the thrush.
Yeah.
The thrush cherry bombs, you know, and the car sounded good, but it wasn't no hot rod. I mean, it didn't have no cam. It didn't have nothing. It just sounded all right. So he was hard on cars, and he always braked the transmissions. And I was always under there. Uh-huh. You know, he'd tell me to get under there. You know, he said, come here, man. You know, he'd call me under there. And then he said, get out and give me a half inch. You know, just the numbers right here. You know, you'll see like this and this. And then the 9/16ths, the 5/8, 7, whatever. Yeah. Give me a socket, give me a wrench. Well,
you learn the tools.
That's how I learned the tools. Mm-hmm. You know? And after a while, he didn't even have to tell me. I mean, I was under there before he even said anything. If I saw him crawl under there, I went under there. And you know, at times, now thinking back, I don't think he had the car secured well at all, you know, or anything like that. So we could very easily died. But Carlos is the one that got me in this business.
Yeah.
And so when I was in 6th grade, 5th and 6th grade, I remember coming home and telling my mom, because I hated school, and I've always hated school. To this day, I have nightmares about going to school, so I would never do homework or anything like that. But if kids listen to this, you have to go to school and get a degree nowadays, because if you don't. Yeah, so I would open the door, and I would tell my mama that I was going down to Carlos' shop. So he had gotten a shop along with this other guy. His name was Jesus. Carlos and Jesus. So Jesus was the body guy, and Carlos was the mechanic, my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So I began to go down there. You know, I would go because it's only 2 blocks away from the house. And, you know, Jace, they wouldn't tell me anything. I just started going down there and hanging out, but I wouldn't hang out. I would actually work. Yeah. And let me tell you what I did. When I got there, I would look for the broom. And I started sweeping the shop. Around the cars, they were sloppy, man.
Yeah.
They were nasty. They were sloppy. They were basically pretty, you know, pigs were probably, I would say, would be cleaner than they were. I mean, they would leave the hammers on the floor.
Yeah.
There was Bondo on the floor that fell out of their spreader, and it just, the blob
hardened.
got on the floor. there were bumpers, fenders, nuts, and bolts and shit all over the floor.
Yeah.
Nothing on the tables, or the tables. They couldn't even put shit on the tables because it was so cluttered. But so I would get the broom, and I would get shit out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they had a fender, I would sweep the around the shop and pick up the fender and put it against the wall.
Yeah.
I would take the bumpers and put them against the wall. I would sweep first. I would pick up all the bolts and put them in a little pile, by the car even if it was on the floor or whatever. But I would have shit organized, man.
Yeah.
By the time, and they took notice. Jesus, the body guy, he took notice. He was like, oh man, So they started liking me. They would like it when I get there because I had the shop clean.
Yeah.
I keep the shop clean. I throw shit away in the trash can, and stuff like that. And from there, I remember standing with no safety glasses or on anything like that. But that was back in those days where you take a punch and you knock a hole on the dent.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you put a
screw,
you
slide
screw
hammer.
the puller in there.
Yeah.
And then you take it out with a sliding hammer. And who cares about welding it?
Yeah.
You didn't
Wando
weld
that
that shit. You could have 100 holes in that sucker and just grind it.
Yeah.
You just take your grinder and bondo it up.
Yeah, once that bondo goes in there, it acts as like a grid mesh.
Like a plug, yeah. And I remember, but that was the way of fixing things back in the day.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the 70s, man. The mid 70s.
Yeah, I remember when they first started bringing around those fucking stud weld, the big ass welders you put on there.
The little nails.
Yeah, I used to have fun with that thing.
So the one day I was just stand over his shoulder, looking at him while he would do the holes and then put the puller and stuff. And one day he actually said, "You want to take the dent out?" I can't even remember where it was, but I said, "Yeah, me? Hell yeah!" He said, "Well, take the dent out." So, are you going to show me? He said, "No, you've been looking all this time. You know how to do it." I remember going over there. I got the punch and the hammer, and I was punching holes. Probably didn't even need them, but man, I was there with the sliding hammer and all that shit. And when I thought I was ready, I got the grinder. Like I said, no safety goggles, no nothing. I mean, just raw shit, man.
I still don't really have any safety
goggles. And I commenced the grinding, man.
Yeah.
I grind the area and shit. And then I went to the table, opened up the Bondo can. I didn't know the first thing about how much hardener and shit like that. So I mixed up some Bondo a few times, and it got hard before I even got through mixing it up. That's how bad it was. He finally come over there to the table, and he said, "No, look, you just need to this much right here, and you mix it up.
Yeah.
And then you go over there." And he said, "You got to be ready." So then he kind of showed me a little bit. So that's how I started. That's exactly how I started in the car business.
Kind of, man, like I was kind of more forced to be in the shop, because like I said, I grew up in a family full of body men, you know what I mean, and shop owners and shit like that. So but one thing I did do, I guess I didn't really have the passion for it because I was a clean kid growing up. I played sports and I was about shoes and shit like that, you know what I mean. I wasn't into getting dirty and working on stuff. But then when I got out of high school, man, it was like it was all about cars and fixing them up. Like I was really influenced by like Fast and Furious when it first came out. It made cars look cool to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not you gotta understand, like, I grew up around hot rods, right? But that shit was never affordable to me as a kid. So I didn't look at a 70s Camaro, which we had plenty of them laying around the houses that I grew up in. I didn't look at those like an obtainable thing. But then when Fast and the Furious came out and these motherfuckers are riding Honda Civics, I'm like, dude, like I can totally afford a Honda Civic. You know what I mean? So the car culture was connected. I was like more connected to that because it was more affordable to me. Because I didn't know how to do all this shit. I didn't know how to work on cars. So it was like just a purchase thing. Yeah. But when I got into cars because of that, then I looked at all the resources I had on the table already. My dad, my grandfather, this shop, this, that, all these people that did this for a living. And I'm like, oh shit, like I like cars now. And I have all this free places that I can just do exactly what you said, and that's what I started doing. I just went there, and then my dad ended up hiring me to be his helper, and and then I fucking kind of did what I learned from him from watching and doing this, that, and the other, and I probably painted my first car like a year and a half later, and it was super nice. Like I still rub it in my dad's face every once in a while when we talk about
that's
it.
Pretty cool.
But I never was a car painter, man. Like I only painted like maybe 5 or 10 cars my entire life, Well,
you have a lot of talent, man. I mean, I've seen all your stuff, and you, where do you get that stuff? I mean, how did you know?
I've talked to people before, but when I grew up, I like comic books, so I used to draw them. And then when I was into like basketball growing up, like I played through high school. I went to Duncanville. I played for Duncanville and all that type of shit. Shoes was big in the 90s, like late 90s. Like shoes was fucking Jordans and Air Maxes. They're still big now, but I'm an adult now. But then that was life. But what we used to do, man, like before people customized shoes in the early 2000s, we used to draw them. Like me and my boys would be at school, and we'd be like, man, look at these new shoes I drew. Like stupid shit, like stuff that would never come into fruition or whatever the fuck you call it, but they were just stuff we drew. And then I ended up taking taking classes. I didn't want to do the paint and body classes at the high school, so I did the architecture. So it was still creative, still designing. Yeah. And so I always had like that design part, but and the weird thing about it was like driving by your shop when I was younger was probably the only time I physically saw custom paint. Because I didn't go to car shows. I didn't really look at car magazines other than the like Super Street and shit that was popular back then. And those import cars back in the day, they were fucking putting stickers down the side of their shit. They wasn't putting no custom paint. So
well, that's pretty cool, man. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, so it was and it was still a time, but it wasn't until I took the job at Other Side Customs as a prepper and was literally around airbrush and custom paint all day. So I always like bring this up to people, like I could have probably been a lot further in my career if I was introduced to this earlier, or if I would have kind of been more ready to accept it.
I kind of feel like where we're at today, it's just how your destiny flows. I don't know, because you never know. I think I felt that way for a lot of years. I felt like I couldn't get into the custom stuff because I had just too many other important issues I had to deal with and stuff. But I think back, and I kind of like used to think like, man, I stayed behind, and if I would have done it, 10 years sooner, I could be better at this and that and the other. But then you start like realizing that as you get older, you get wiser, and it's like no, things are like this for a reason, and this is the way they need to be. It all goes back to responsibility. Really, to me, it's like if I hadn't been responsible of taking care of my family and stuff like that, then I would have gone to custom work and stuff and all that, and then really struggled.
Yeah, and see, I think that's you had brought it up earlier about kind of growing up poor, and all the stuff that you have hanging up is all the shit you couldn't have when you were younger. Well, that's what I felt like the last 15 years of my life has been, is me buying all the shit that I've ever wanted, or if I do decide I want something, I just buy it. And it's kind of it's a really stupid materialistic way of thinking about doing things. But so I have lots of shit. If I want to build a bike, or if I want to custom this or custom that, I get it. Yeah. But I don't own a house. I don't own my shop. I don't, all those really responsible things I could have done with the hundreds of thousands of dollars I've already made in my life. Yeah. It's all been just having a good time and shit like that. Yeah, and
see, that wasn't me. Yeah. I had to get my life in order and then do what I wanted to do.
So I'm trying to be responsible now. Like next year is like no toys, just all dump everything I got into my business and me.
Get your life. Yeah. What's like, what's gonna make you, as you get older, all these things that I've done, including I mean, if it wouldn't be for my wife Lupe, I wouldn't be where I am today, and that's part of what I've chosen in my life. Mm-hmm. I chose to find a good woman, and stay with. If it wouldn't be for her, I wouldn't have done any of these things that I'm telling you about. Yeah. Because that right there, just knowing her, made me more responsible. because that's the way she was. You know, she came from a good family, more responsible family.
Mm-hmm.
So if she hadn't said, you know, if we didn't have our priorities in order, she would have probably said, yeah, do what you want, you know, this and that. And I would have taken that advice, and then I wouldn't have gotten to the point where I am today.
Yeah.
And so the choices I've made in my life, that's probably the best choice I've ever made.
Yeah.
In my living years.
Well, also, if you're not, you know, if you're good, settled down, and married and happy, then you're not running around spending all your money on rims and shit on your car to kind of go pick up chicks. So,
yeah,
you know.
and that goes back to that. It's like, I mean, she told me numerous of times. It's like, so what do you want? You want to spend your money on a new car every year, or you want to save money to get your shop?
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I want my shop. Well, then you can't be buying a new car and spending and wasting money, just throwing money away and get a shop. You can't, because you're just throwing your money away. I mean, she was there to guide me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the way my life was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Because if you go back and think of like we were talking about, then none of this thing would have taken place. And now that you know that what you do need to do, then you just need to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so fortunately for me, I started doing it when I was younger, but it's never too late to start.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's different, man. It's you know, I don't know. Like, I just thought that was the. I mean, it worked for me though. I mean, I'm here now. I have my careers because of it. A lot of it was, you know, working and building bikes and stuff like that. But, you know, I don't know, man. Like it's pretty good. I can't complain, I guess.
Yeah, it is. I you know, but it could be better.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you got to think about the future, because I mean, you know, you're going to have to be somewhat set, you know, for when you get to an age like where I am now. You know, you can't start thinking like this when you're my age. Yeah. You have to start thinking about it now.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I had to give any kind of advice, is that, you know, get your life in order and get your priorities, you know, start doing those, because, you know, who knows where, you know, the future, no one knows what the future brings. Yeah. But, you know, Social Security may not be around. Yeah. You know, they've been saying that for years, but you know, you don't need to depend on those kind of things. You need to make your own. Yeah. To where you don't have to depend on the government.
What I really worry about is just, you know, dealing with paint for, you know, the last 15 years, 16 years. You know, like, if that's really gonna, like, is that gonna affect me really bad in another 15 years to where I can't work or things like that? You know, I mean, I use a respirator and shit, but when I airbrush, I don't.
Yeah,
I can't stand it. Yeah, it's hard, man.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
Like doing art is like to me, it's like, it's all about mood and comfort. Like like almost like setting candles up and making it a real comfortable environment to do it.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I feel the same way for certain things that I'm doing. Yeah. And it's bulky. Yeah. And you can't, it's almost to the point where you can't really concentrate on what you're doing, because it's there. Yeah. But if you make it a habit, then it'll probably become just another thing.
Second nature. Yeah.
Second nature. And because, you know, you got to think about your health.
Yeah, that's what I'm really. I mean, I just turned 36 like a couple weeks ago, and it's like, I guess now, like, I've always looked at it like, okay, I'm halfway to 40. I'm good. I'm not that old yet. But now I'm like I'm over halfway to 70. And you know what I mean? So now I'm like, fuck, man, like, things got to get, you know, responsibilities need to be kicking in now.
Exactly. You know? And you know, you know, it's funny that you say that, because I told you earlier that when I was 30, I said I have to have my shop by the time I'm 33. I cannot be here working at this place that I love, and these people are making it bad for me, you know, the ones that don't care, because they're just workers like me. Yeah. But I didn't want to be around them. You know? So I had to think of another way that I could get away from there. And so I said, look, I'm not going to be, by the time I'm 33 years old, I have to be out of here. Yeah. And 3 years is a long time. So I can't believe that I was actually patient enough to wait. but I did.
Yeah.
And patience is something that I don't. My wife accuses me of not having a lot of patience, all the time. So, but I committed myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something you have to do.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. It's because I used to look at like 2 years, 3 years as like, fuck, that's a long time. But I keep going back. Now I think, okay, 2 years ago I was here and this is all that's taking place. I was like, dude, that wasn't that long ago. And so like now I'm looking at like if I spend the next 2 years reinvesting back into not my bikes and my material visual things, but like the business or putting money aside for myself and all other different, like doing responsible shit basically, that it'll alleviate. Like I'm a huge worrier, you know what I mean? Like I'm constantly
I am too,
worrying about things or trying to solve problems. That's one of the
reasons I've done what I've done,
Yeah.
And then look at my head.
Yeah. Well, you still got hair. I don't. I'm losing mine. But no, so the idea is to try to secure some things in life, and then you know what I mean. Just
yeah, and that's kind of what I mean. So make do what you think it's going to make you to where you get to the point where you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Where you're at. And we all know that's all those things are hard, because not everything pans out how you plan it.
Yeah, for sure. And
so
you can plan 5 years, and a lot of shit can change in 5 years too. So
I mean, how many of us are out there in this world that need to lose weight, and we keep saying tomorrow?
Yeah.
And tomorrow never comes.
Yeah, it's always the next
Same thing with goals.
Yeah.
Same thing with goals. And I'm one of them. I'm guilty. I mean,
all these projects.
Yeah. I mean, hell, I need to lose weight. I keep saying tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't come.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there are certain things that I do take more, and those things don't go by me. But those are things that you just can't let go. Just like when you were young. For example, of having a paycheck every week. I made sure that regardless of what I did in my life,
mm-hmm.
I had a paycheck every week to support my family, pay the bills and stuff. So, it's just.
Well, I tell people that all the time. A lot of people reach out to me. They listen to this podcast and they're into custom paint, but they do it on the side. Maybe they're pinstripers or they're airbrush guys and things like that. And I, things on the outside in my life looks like they worked out great, but realistically, I feel like if you have a good job or you have a job that at least pays your bills right, just stick that out. I mean, you can always do art on the side, or you can always paint on the side, and a lot of them are doing it. I'm like, sometimes I've had a problem myself of because this is my 9 to 5, this is my daily job, check, everything. There's been times where I get to where I hate it. I can't stand this. I fucking hate paint. I hate airbrush, and I don't ever want to do it. And then I'll do a job that brings all that happiness back, and I'm like, fuck, man, I love this stuff. And then you go through those motions again of like,
yeah. And it's funny you say that, because I don't think there has been any job that I've ever done, or anything that I've ever done in what I've done in this business, that made me think I hated it and didn't want to do it anymore. I don't think there's been one instance that I didn't love what I do.
Yeah.
I think that the closest I've ever gotten to that is when I was working at Sue, and I got tired of the corporate people. But it wasn't towards what I did, because I took a lot of pride in what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I take a lot of pride in looking at the customer, at their reaction of when they come pick up something I did for them.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me happy. And so that drives me. It's whatever I do. It's like if you see a flaw in what you've done, they're going to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
So don't let it go,
mm-hmm.
And say, oh, man, it'll be okay. They're not going to see it.
Well, it's just taking pride in your work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, see, like for me with the ups and downs of it, it's I think it really started setting in when I started having success, and then success and recognition, for being a painter or an airbrush or whatever the case, like someone that's holding you on a high standard, then I'm harder on myself. And when I feel like, things aren't going like when I know that I can airbrush a certain way, but it's just not coming out of the airbrush that way and landing that way. That puts me in like in a funk where I'm like, fuck, man, like that's not what I envisioned it to look like, and that's the best that I got.
Yeah.
You know, and so those ups and downs are more, they're more geared towards the artistic side of things.
Yeah. Well, we all have that.
Yeah.
I mean, because like I said, I mean, I can't do a lot of stuff you do, and I wish I could. And if I try to do it, a lot of the stuff is not going to be like I envisioned it. So, yeah, you know, that's just the way that's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. But, so what kind of like what's your go-to products? I mean, what have you been spraying for the last 20 years, 30 years, whatever?
Oh man, you know, Jace, I've been lucky, man, to have worked with the best companies that are out there as far as spraying liquids go. So at the very beginning, you know, when I started at Sewell, I didn't spray a whole lot of lacquer, believe it or not. As old as I am, the lacquer days were kind of phased out when I came into the business, man. I started at Sewell in '85, and I had painted in the garages. Like my sister, she was the first one that bought a house with a garage.
Yeah.
So I painted my first car. I was going to tell you that earlier. I painted my first car at 14 years old.
Yeah.
I was 14, and I painted it in her garage. I borrowed her garage. I said, "Can I borrow your garage?" She said, "Yeah." And I put enamel on it. You know, it was Del Star. It was called. It was by DuPont. And it was just single stage, you know, and hardener, and it was metallic. And it was a bitch. And I screwed it up. So I had to paint the car 3 times. And I still didn't get it right. The customer finally said, he said, "Man, he said, this is just hard." He said, "I know how hard it is." He said, "I like it like it is." He said, don't. I guess at an early age, I just try to be too hard on myself. And every time I was like, "No, I can do better.
Yeah.
I can do better." And it turned out to be free, because I only charged him like $240 at the time.
Yeah.
You know, it's back in the early 70s.
Yeah.
No, it's around 70, 78, somewhere in there. And he finally said, "I like it." He said, "What's wrong with it?" And I could just see stuff that I didn't like. And it was a Torino, like I don't know, 72 or 71 or something like that, 10-year-old car at the time, I think, somewhere around there. And he said, "I like it." Yeah, don't. So I didn't make any money on it. Yeah. And I oversprayed my sister's garage in red everywhere because it was enamel. Yeah. And speaking of not wearing respirators, you know, I used to do that a lot, and my hair felt like it was nothing but wires. You know, just a big old ball of wire because it was so stiff and all that enamel on my head. But so when I started at Sewell, we were using R&M, which is a BASF product, and it was lacquer, and it was factory pack. They made the code to the car. Yeah. I mean, you could open the hood and say, "This is code 99." You go to the shelf, and they had code 99, man. Right there. Which it was kind of weird to me. I don't know how they did that. But it was cool. But that was in 85. In 87, we went to Sickens. It was really a new product.
And they've always had a reputation for being one of the kings of
well, I tell you what happened. When I was working for Paint & Sons, because I graduated in 83, and between 83 and 85, I worked at a body shop called Paint & Sons. Paint & Sons Paint and Body. And so I learned, I was a helper, you know, I started off from the ground up, but I became a really good helper. And my painter, Mitchell, would just let me paint. Yeah. He said, you know, he would say, "Paint that car and paint this car." And I would be prepping, and I was like a little machine, man. Yeah. And he would let me paint. And so I learned how to paint like really good, and especially like single stage. Yeah. We did a lot of single stage back in those days. And it was all Del Star. So when I went to Sewell, we were using that factory pack. And then in 87, we got a whole new set of booths, a whole new setup. And it was one of the first setups in the country. As a matter of fact, Sewell was the first dealership that got a setup like that. And what it was is 3 garments. And they all baked, especially the one in the center. Yeah. The one in the center was strictly a bake oven, and it had this real little like little railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And you put the car on top, you open up the center, and you push the car over. And so the booths were always empty.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a machine, man. We were doing 20 plus cars a day at Sewell. So we went to when that happened in '87, we started using Sikkens, and which it was a base coat clear coat.
Yeah.
And so not very many painters back in the day took it in because they were lacquer painters. And lacquer, I mean, if you run lacquer, you'd have to put it on wet because that shit was basically dry when you put it when it got on the car. But so we started doing that, and that's how I got my break at Sewell. Mm-hmm. When we went to the urethane product, there were 6 painters at the time, including myself, and only 3 of them kind of had knowledge of using a single stage.
Oh.
So when we started base coat clearing, everybody had a hard time with the clear because they would just run it. Mm-hmm. They would just run it, had trash all over it, and they didn't know how to. So me coming from a small shop and having to shoot single stage all the time, I was real good at it. Mm. So when the time came to be my turn to prove myself, I went in there and shot the clear and made it look like glass, man.
Yeah.
I mean, no runs, no nothing, hardly any trash at all. It basically looked like a factory paint job.
Yeah.
So the guy, Mr. Jim Ponder, the guy had hired me at the body shop, he said, "You're a new painter." That's a badass. That's how I got my break.
Yeah.
So I started painting for them, and they out of 6 painters, there was only 2 of us left, me and another guy, and so me and that other guy worked for a lot of years together, and then I started running the shop. After Richard left, I think he worked there from 85 to 60. He probably worked there about another 2 years. He left somewhere around maybe 80, 89 or something like that. And then after he left, I started running the paint shop.
Yeah.
And so I used Sikkens for 4 years, which was like you said earlier, that was the big dog of the urethanes. Sikkens. Sewell was using Sikkens. That's everybody used Sikkens.
Yeah.
They would. And I'm not kidding you when I say this, that Sikkens was Sewell was the model for what dealerships are today.
Yeah.
They always been. They've always taken the best setup, the pace, the pay, how they did the pay, everything followed after them because they were so successful. One of the most successful dealerships in the country still today, both Cadillac and Lexus and all them. So used Sikkens for 4 years, and then our contract was over, and just things happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you ever heard of a brand called Standox.
Yeah.
We took Standox in after Sikkens and used that for 4 years.
That's a little bit. Standox is more like it's more predominant, slightly north of here in the mid area. Like that's a big paint for like Oklahoma and north.
Man, Standox was basically huge in Europe.
Yeah.
A lot of the manufacturers was a OEM for a lot of the manufacturers, like big dealerships for Mercedes and Ferraris and all that stuff. That's what they used. So it used that for 4 years. For some reason, every time we signed a contract it was like 4 years, and after 4 years somebody else would come in, and those were back in the days where paint companies wanted to get in and they would offer stuff.
Yeah.
They would like, I give you frame machines, I give you 100,000, I give you paint booths. So after 4 years of using Sikkens, I started using Spies.
Another big one.
Another big one.
Yeah.
So another badass product. So Standox to me, in my opinion, Standox has been the best I've ever used.
For real.
Yeah. Just because of the coverage.
Yeah.
And the quality of their product, man, the clear. That's how it was back then. I don't know about today, but haven't used it in a long time. But they're basically phased out of the U.S. now. Standox, they went back to the European because they got bought out by like a huge company, like it's been happening.
Yeah.
And that company took them back over there since they had other products. Mm-hmm. So after I used Spies, That's when I got my own company, my shop.
Yeah.
And so I was lucky enough, since I got a lot of the people in at Sewell, a lot of the paint manufacturers,
Mm-hmm.
the people helped me out, and I began to use DuPont.
DuPont was big around that time too.
DuPont was huge.
Yeah.
DuPont was like everywhere.
And I still remember, like, probably I was spraying DuPont in like 04, 05, 06. And man, they had a Premier line. Oh, I love that shit.
And that's what I used. I used
Yeah.
their high-end shit
Yeah.
in my shop in Dallas. So I used their high-end everything. And I signed the contract with them for, I think, 6 years. After the 6 years was over, PPG came in, but not with regular PPG. You ever heard of Global?
Yeah.
Well, I began to use Global,
Uh-huh.
PPG
What,
Global.
is Global better? Like I'm not
Yeah,
too far.
that's their European line.
Okay.
That's the Global it's the Standux, it's the Speeds, it's the Sikkens and all that
Okay.
of PPG, and that's another like huge company, and then I used that for 6 years at my shop,
Yeah.
and then Global came in or DuPont, and then Global came in, and I used that for another 6 years,
Yeah.
and the remainder of the time that I'm still not technically on contract with them, but I still deal with it a
Mhm.
lot. Now, I did get to use BASF, which was their Glazert,
Mm-hmm.
and Glazert is one of the best. Also,
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever got a chance to use any of that, but
No, I grew up in local. Like I've only worked in maybe 2 dealerships my life, and it was less than a year each time. So pretty much my whole paint career has been on your low end paint products. You know, in
okay.
House of Color. I used to use a lot of that shit before it started getting
Yeah,
more expensive.
The Glazert line I didn't use for maybe for like 6 months,
Mhm.
but I can tell you that it's pretty badass. It's
Mhm.
BASF product,
Yeah.
and it's pretty much badass. And then now for the last 3 years, I've been using House of Color,
Uh-huh.
and they sponsor the show,
Yeah.
and they sponsor me, basically, to paint the cars on the show and stuff like that. So they have a clear. It's called UC21,
Yeah.
and that's badass shit, man.
I started using it last year. Ron sent me some Fleenor,
Yeah.
and I dug it. But I did, I don't have a booth. I got a homemade booth. So, like last year around September, I sprayed a black set of saddlebag lids. Popped so hard. So solvent popped so bad. Went, sanded it back down. Obviously not good enough. Re-blacked it. Shot it again. That original pop came through the base coat, the new base coat, and popped the new shit. So I just like had a set of lids that ended up costing me, damn near a gallon of clear. And so I went back to Matrix, which I never really had issues with Matrix and solvent pop. Because with custom painters like us, like our style of custom paint, the layering and the how quick we come back over things is a lot.
That's what made it solvent pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to hurry up. You have to hurry up and put a lot of, because solvent popping is caused by too much material at one time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't give it time to breathe.
Yeah.
And that's what causes solvent popping. So that makes sense, if you had to hurry up and get it cleared right away,
Yeah.
and then come back, that's what made it.
Yeah,
solvent
these
pop.
are just black lids though. But I mean, like for the most part, it's usually it's the same reason why like we've never used like PPG 2021 because that clear, which is from what I've been told is one of the best clears out there. It just for us, we say we'll mid clear something and sand it back down the next day and then come back and pinstripe and drop shadow. We usually try to wait a couple of days before we re-clear it, but sometimes circumstances don't allow that, and I need to be able to do that, and it doesn't usually end well when you do that.
Yeah, I know, and that's what happens to a lot of custom.
Yeah.
When we do a lot of custom stuff, that's what happens. I mean, I've run into that problem, but it's basically with other products too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that we are using the product and telling it to do something that it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, I remember, last year at SEMA, y'all were there. I was there too. I went for House of Color. They brought me out
I
there.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked up there. Yeah.
It was cool. It was weird seeing Joel up there though. Joel's a friend of mine that also works. He Balboa Customs, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Uh-huh.
So it's funny how I had my old shop, and then Joel was there across the way, and this, that, and the other, and the next thing you know, we're both sitting in the same booth and see him a year and a half later. It was weird.
Yeah, that is. Joel, he comes over here a lot because he helps me on the show.
Yeah,
I take him up there because he's a hard worker and dedicated guy too. So
he's back to what we were talking about earlier about just being a passion. Like when I used to work next door to him, he was so anal with everything he did.
He still is.
And like there's like being passionate, and then there's like
being stupid.
Yeah, you're just, okay. Let it go, dude. It's fine. And he just would keep going, and I would always.
That's his problem. Still today, I tell him all the time. I said, dude, you have to learn how to not do that.
Yeah.
Because you're causing your own problems right here, just like that, by doing that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he's a hard worker, man. But yeah, that's what happens, man. When we do custom paint, and that'll happen with just about any product. So. But for the last 3 years, I've been using that. I've been using House of Color. So I've used probably the main brands of paint all throughout my life.
Yeah.
So I haven't gotten a chance to use anything cheap, which is great.
Well, it's weird, man. Like, for us, I try to equate this so people understand it, especially people that aren't in the paint business. We don't turn out. Paint wise, we're probably a $20,000 less a year material consumption. So, I mean, you just equate that with the actual work that we're doing. So if we were to use PBG, that would probably be a $30,000 to $40,000 price tag, and that would significantly eat into like the profit of those jobs to where we wouldn't be able to be in business.
Yeah. No, I get it, man. I get it. We gotta. Us, that we do what we do, we have to go out there and chase what makes more sense.
Yeah. Finding stuff that works, because I mean, like different areas, different parts of the country, different shit sprays better. And like I said, I was talking with somebody from one of the big companies, and I was like, you guys are, not everybody that sprays your product has a $50,000 paint booth.
Right.
And I would almost argue that more people spray your products in homemade shit and makeshift crappy ass booths than in nice ones, in the big picture. So
that's the truth.
Most
people have booths like the one I got right now.
Yeah, there's a nice cross flow kind of thing.
That's it.
And I was like, well, why not gear your products towards that market instead of making it to where
that market is probably 70%.
Yeah.
Compared to 30 of the people that do have all the baddest shit.
Yeah, you're talking about maybe 3 or 4 badass dealerships in each major metropolitan area. Yeah.
I would say most of those make up the dealerships that make up the 30%.
Yeah.
Because most shops.
Every different part of the country, from my traveling, I've saw that, like here in Dallas, where we have Service King and Craig's. Is Craig still running around?
Uh-huh.
Well, they had the Makos are kind of nationwide, and then Earl Scheib, I guess, is more nationwide
they're gone
too.
Now.
Yeah, so different parts of the country, they have their chain, collision centers. You know what I'm saying? They're everywhere. Different ones here and there, and they make up a lot too. But
they do.
But
Service King around here was one of the biggest.
I worked for them. I walked out mid-buff one day on my painter. Dude, it's a crazy story, man. I was working there, and this is when I was, buffing. That was that was the level I was at, was buffing cars. I was really good at buffing. But this motherfucker would go at lunch and go have margaritas and beers, and then come back like buzz as fuck and hang runs down the side of cars, and then want me to block it out.
Oh shit!
And so I'm sitting here blocking out runs, and then to me, this shit needs to be re-cleared.
Oh shit!
Yeah, because I'm gonna block it out. It's gonna be glass, and then I'm taking all the peel.
Well, not only
off.
that, you probably won't be able to see it.
Yeah, it's gonna pop or something.
Yeah.
So I got him fucking it up every day, and then I got the service writer on my neck saying, "Do you know how to do your job?" And like talking to me like that, like I'm the fucking one that did it.
You're the problem.
And I said, "You know what? Here, you buff it, motherfucker." And I left. I never went back. I didn't even get my last check. I don't think. I was.
Yeah. You see, that's the corporate world.
Yeah.
And that's what I didn't like. You have people up there that don't know what it takes to do your job.
Yeah.
And they talk to you like that. Basically, I wouldn't. But basically, the reason I left is because I didn't like the way they treated people.
Yeah.
And then I'm not talking about the owner. The owner was great to me. I'm talking about the people that were up above me.
It makes me wonder why, like, all the corporate, because I feel like a lot of that corporate shit also goes on in, like, the Valspar, from the people I've met. They're not as, there's a handful of guys like Ron and Mike Taylor and some other guys that are involved in these companies that have real passion for paint. And there's other guys that got this job who fucking knows how, and
I'm sure that goes on
in every industry, right?
In every industry.
But I wonder, like, what, from what I hear from the people, like, in the industry, like, mainly marketing people, they're like, well, we're trying to figure out how to make this, and this. And I'm like, well, you don't really know shit about this industry and you're marketing for it. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you're marketing to people that you don't understand. And maybe the marketer in your position should be somebody that does this.
No, there's a lot of people that shouldn't be in the positions where they're at today. But, I mean, that's in every industry.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? There's a lot of, like I said, Sewell was a good case in point for me. Those guys didn't know what it took.
Yeah.
Even though I busted my ass for them every day, did what I was supposed to do every day, it was still not enough. That's when I figured out. I said, I don't want to be the body shop manager. I want to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
I want to have my own business.
For sure.
So I left a great paycheck, but I didn't have to deal with the crap.
Yeah.
Then I felt like if I was going to struggle and have to deal with anything, at least it was going to be mine.
Yeah. That's what me and my brother, we used to say all the time. It's like, man, like, why don't we just move to California and struggle out there? If we're going to struggle anyway, might as well be struggling someplace that's badass, you know what I mean? in a nice environment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand, man.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll start wrapping this up. So what, the show, man, like, what is it? You just finished season 3 filming? So
we're just filming season 3 about a week and a half ago. And, man, have a lot of stuff coming up, like SEMA.
Yeah.
We got a lot of things to do there. Have a few other things to wrap up, and then once that's done, I think that after SEMA, it's like negotiating time again for the 4th season, and nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
Whether we do a 4th season or not, I think we all pretty much know and understand that they do want another season, but my opinion is that we need a different format.
Yeah.
To be able to do a better, to be able to not struggle so much.
Yeah.
And not be able to and not have to work so late and kill ourselves, while doing these cars that we want to do as good as possible.
Yeah.
So pending on the talks and negotiations about where to meet, a 4th season's coming, man.
Cool. So it's on what channel is that?
Iron Resurrection, it's on Velocity.
Okay.
Which is now Motor Trend on demand.
Okay.
The Discovery. It's a Discovery channel, and they bought out Motor Trend, so they're changing the name from Velocity to Motor Trend.
That's cool.
Motor Trend had a lot more followers.
I think I subscribed to that on Amazon. The motor thing.
Yeah, it's way bigger than.
So what's the Instagram and all the other stuff that people can follow you and shit like that?
So my Instagram is Shorty's Custom Paint. My Facebook page is Shorty Javier Shorty Ponce. Ponce. That's my page. It's a page where people can follow me and just kind of keep up with what I'm doing. The other, your regular Facebook is just personal stuff, family and kids and stuff like that. So that's why I don't put that out there much. But my page is Javier Shorty Ponce is where I put my the stuff that I'm doing. Yeah. And then, like I said, my Instagram is Shorty's Custom Paint.
Cool. Is that you don't have a website or anything like that too?
I do have a website.
Didn't you have some shirts you just got done or you're getting done?
Yeah. I do have a website that you can go. It's Shorty at Shorty's Custom Paint. But I also, you can also go to the Instagram and hit, go in the bio thing, and it takes you directly to the little store. And my daughter,
She does.
That's what she does.
Nice.
Sells my stuff.
Damn. My daughter needs to step her game up for sure.
Yeah. So come follow me, man. I'll be glad to hear. If there's anything that I can do to help you with, I don't know, what you might have a project and have a question, and if I can help, feel free to hit me up.
That's what it's about, man. Well, thank you. And you guys follow Shorty. All right. What's up, everyone? I hope you enjoyed that. It was a good time sitting down talking with Shorty. Hope you guys got all his information so you can give him a follow and a like and a thumbs up. You know what I mean? I want to thank the sponsors, Texas Performance MC, TexasPerformanceMC.com on the World Wide Web. Paint Huffer Metal Flake on Instagram, PaintHuffer.com if you want to get set up with some of their flaky ass flakes. Also, HorsepowerInc.net, Horsepower Inc. on Instagram, and Horsepower Inc. Indy on Facebook if you want to check out those Horsepower Kings up there in Indianapolis. Also want to thank Hard Drive Parts. I want to thank those guys a lot. Hard Drive Parts on Instagram and hdtwin.com if you want to get set up as a dealer. Also would like to thank you guys for following us and all the things that we kind of try to do, or whatever you want to call it. We appreciate it, man. Don't forget to check out our Patreon and our YouTube and all the different platforms that we're on and trying to grow this stuff. So, you guys have a good week, and I think we got some more. I think I have another paint guest coming soon, but I'm going to try to get another motorcycle guy on here pretty soon. And just, keep it rolling. Also, I got a couple ideas for some more fun podcasts, some more like joking, getting drunk kind of things, but, plenty to come. So just, keep liking us, I think, or whatever you do. And we're going to keep doing what we do. So you guys have a good week, and we'll catch you next time.